She's been crying for 40 minutes. I've tried everything. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. She said it to the empty hallway, or maybe to herself, or maybe to the universe that had handed her a 2-month-old baby and then declined to include a manual. Sable Rain, 28 years old, was sitting on the padded bench outside the pediatric observation room at Crestwood Medical Center at 11:17 on a Wednesday night, her daughter Fern pressed against her shoulder, both of them exhausted in different registers, the baby loudly, the mother silently. She had been alone in this for 8 weeks. Not entirely. Her sister called, her neighbor brought food, but in the particular way that matters most, in the 3 a.m. way, in the hallway outside the pediatric ward way, she was alone. Fern had a minor respiratory concern, nothing serious, the doctors had said, but the word hospital had rearranged something in Sable's chest that wouldn't settle back into place. She didn't hear him approach. He moved quietly, the way people do when they have spent years learning that institutions function better when maintenance is invisible. He was 33, tall, wearing the gray uniform of the hospital's facilities crew, pushing a mop cart with one hand. He had dark, calm eyes and the unhurried quality of someone who had decided long ago not to rush through the world. He slowed when he heard Fern, stopped completely when he saw Sable's face. He didn't ask permission, he didn't announce himself, he simply began to hum. It was low and slow, a melody without a name, or maybe with a name only he knew, something that moved like water over rounded stones. Fern's cries faltered. Sable looked up sharply. The man wasn't looking at her. He was looking at a point slightly past her left shoulder, the way you look when you're somewhere inside a memory, and his hands were still on the cart, and he was just humming, steady and unself-conscious, as though it were the most natural thing in the world to offer a lullaby to a stranger's crying child in a hospital corridor at nearly midnight. Fern went quiet within 90 seconds. Sable exhaled so completely that her whole body changed shape. "How did you do that?" she whispered. He looked at her then, and there was something in his expression, warm and a little complicated, that she couldn't quite read. "My daughter," he said simply. "Same age, long time ago. You learn what works." He nodded once, gently, and pushed his cart forward down the corridor and around the corner, and was gone.
His name was Orrin Whitfield. He was the founder of Crestwood Medical Center. He had established the hospital 11 years ago at 22 with a small inheritance, a significant amount of stubbornness, and the specific grief of having watched his younger sister receive inadequate care at an understaffed rural clinic when she was 19. The clinic hadn't had enough nurses. The waiting room had been cold. The doctor had been competent but overwhelmed, and Orrin had sat in a plastic chair watching the system fail someone he loved and made a quiet, furious decision that had organized the next decade of his life. Crestwood had grown. It had a cardiac wing now, a pediatric unit, a community outreach program that provided free care to uninsured families within a 40-mile radius. Orrin sat on the board, managed the foundation, oversaw a staff of 412 people. He also, 3 nights a month, put on the gray facilities uniform and walked the corridors. Not secretly, the senior staff knew. He had done it since the 2nd year, when he'd realized that institutions develop blind spots the higher you climb inside them, and that the only cure was to descend, to walk the hallways at midnight, to see what the night shift saw, to understand, with his body rather than just his mind, what the hospital felt like to the people inside it when nobody important was watching. He had never expected it to matter in the way it mattered tonight. His daughter's name had been Pearl. She would have been 9 now. She had lived for 6 weeks, arriving too early into a world that had not quite been ready for her, and leaving it on a Tuesday morning in March, while Orrin sat beside a bassinet in a hospital very different from the one he had built. He did not talk about Pearl often, but he carried her with him into every corridor, every decision, every moment like this one, a crying baby in the late-night quiet, like a compass that always pointed toward what mattered. Sable asked about him the next morning. Not by description, she didn't know enough to describe him, but by the quality of what had happened. She mentioned it to the day nurse, a warm, efficient woman named Claudette, who had worked at Crestwood for 6 years and listened with her head tilted. A man from facilities? Humming? She calmed her in under 2 minutes, Sable said. I just want to say thank you properly. Claudette was quiet for a moment, sorting through something in her expression. What did he look like? Sable described him. Claudette's face did something careful and brief. I'll see if I can find out who was on the night rotation, she said, which was not quite an answer.
What Claudette knew, and chose not to say, was that the description matched the man who signed her paycheck, who had built the room they were standing in, who walked these halls in gray 3 nights a month because he believed, and had said so once at a staff meeting that people still talked about, that a hospital is only as good as the kindness that lives in its ordinary moments, not its extraordinary ones. Sable was discharged the following afternoon, with Fern sleeping soundly in her carrier, a clean bill of health, and a follow-up appointment in 2 weeks. At the front desk, she found a small envelope with her name on it. Inside was a printed card, Crestwood's Community Care Program, covering her follow-up visits at no cost. Below the program information, someone had handwritten a single line. Fern is going to be just fine. So are you. No signature. Just a small drawing of a bird in the margin, the kind a person draws without thinking, from habit. Sable stood in the lobby for a moment, Fern warm against her chest, and felt something in the complicated knot of the past 8 weeks loosen very slightly. She looked up at the lobby, the clean floors, the soft lighting, the small garden visible through the east wing windows, and thought about the man with the quiet eyes and the lullaby that had come from somewhere personal and been given freely to a stranger. She didn't know who he was. She didn't need to. What he had offered her in that corridor was not a resource or a service or a transaction. It was a human being recognizing another human being at the edge of their capacity and simply sitting down beside them in the only language available at midnight. Some people build hospitals. Some people hum lullabies. The wisest ones understand these are the same work done at different hours. The most powerful thing you can offer someone in their hardest moment is your simple, unhurried presence. That costs nothing. It changes everything. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, subscribe, and comment. Let's spread more stories of kindness and hope together.